my bag. Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, I don't need a microphone for you to hear me. I'm Angela Donadell, and I'm the Public Housing Campaign Manager for Goals. We are a range of drugs. We are a nonprofit organization that primarily focuses on assisting people with housing issues, but we also provide direct services. So welcome, thank you for coming. I hope that this gives you the information, and in a moment, I'm going to introduce two of our local politicians, our Councilwoman, Carlina, and I don't see Harvey.
It's okay. It's okay. But is Christina here from?
Christina Chase is right there.
Is Louise here from Manhattan Legal?
Yes, Louise is here. Aix is here.
Let's take a seat there. What about Joshua from?
Joshua Barnett is at the table.
All right,
the only
Joshua.
person we're missing is Anna Luff because she has laryngitis. But representatives from NILAG are here to answer any questions that you may have about what we're going to talk about tonight, or if you have any personal issue with housing that you need to deal with. All right? Is that good?
I thought you did great. I'm going to the front though. I'm going to the front. Because everybody's like this. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Even though I forgive Angela for calling me a politician, I am your public servant. I'm here to serve you, and I am not here to talk to you all night. I will tell you that my office is located on East 4th Street between Avenue B and C. Many of you have been there or called me or emailed me or DM'd me on Instagram because of many, many issues in our public housing system. I don't have to go through it all because you're living it every single day. But I will tell you, I actually used to be an organizer at the Lower East Side, and even before that, my whole family grew up in Farragut houses, Stewart Park Extension, Bushwick houses, and those issues have been systemic, deeply rooted in racism and oppression for decades and decades, right? So here we are, after decades of neglect by the federal government, really every single level of government, we're at a place where public housing is in such disrepair that we have now moved on to a phase where the state has passed legislation, and again, this panel will speak to this much more eloquently than I will. We have now come to a place where the state has passed legislation where in order to privatize or put the public housing into this preservation trust, there should be a mechanism that resembles democracy, where there should be a vote as to whether that particular public housing development will go into this new program. Now, how the state and the Fed sort of justify this program is because this will enable sort of a new flow of money to come in by private entities. It is a lot, there are a lot more facets to this conversation. I'm just trying to keep it very, very basic. I am someone that is, I'm going to give you my personal feelings. I do not want to influence your decision, because let me tell you where I come from. I come from the place where you all are the experts in your own lives, and you all live this every single day. And it is your decision how you move forward and how you feel about the future of your own home. I am disappointed that we are in this place. There is no question. We should have been treating public housing the way we do any piece of general infrastructure. The same way we talk about our hospitals and the same way we talk about the MTA, that is how we should have been talking about advocating for and investing in public housing, period. I've only been the councilwoman 6 years, okay? I've really tried to address repairs, just all kinds of issues. But this conversation is to give you the information and the perspectives from people who have lived through multiple experiences, even legal processes, and suing the city. And you actually have legal experts on this panel as well. So they're going to explain to you the differences in what you're hearing, what's the preservation trust, how does it relate to privatization, and also the new vote mechanism, PAC-RAD. There are a lot of components. So I think this is the first of a few meetings that are people. If you ever have any questions beyond this, this will not be the last meeting on this topic, but you can also reach out to our offices individually. The course, I want to thank the Assembly member, Harvey Epstein, and his team for helping host. I want to thank the Girls Club for this physical space. And I also see representatives here from State Senator Brian Kavanaugh's office, as well as Congressman Dan Goldman's office. So I want to thank, of course, and Assemblywoman Grace Lee. So I want to thank my colleagues in government for being here. So that's it. I'm Carlina Rivera. I hope this is helpful to you. I know these people. I know what they do every single day. I have respect for each and every one of them. We don't always agree on everything, but we come from it at a place where we want people to feel like they're living with dignity. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Andrew. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Look, I was just going to say that we're going to pass Harvey, and I was going to talk about something else. But look who appeared in the doorway. So we are good. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
1 minute?
1 minute? That's all you want is 1 minute before you start?
No.
I'd like to introduce Harvey Epstein, the Assemblyman on the Lower East Side. Take it away, Harvey.
Hi everyone, how are you? Hi everyone, how are you doing? Okay, good. So my name is Harvey Epstein. I represent this neighborhood in state government. Lived here for decades and really proud to be able to represent this community. And I want to thank Gold and our panelists for being here to talk about the future of public housing. For anyone who knows me for decades, I'm not looking at you in particular, but I've been fighting for the rights of public housing residents for decades. Now is my capacity as a legislator and before as running legal services offices. Some people here who are my legal services colleagues will remember. You okay?
I'll move down. That's why I'm leaving. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah. And so, as Ms. Huff settles in, I just want to really appreciate everyone coming here, really talking about these issues. It's important that we prioritize public housing and are committed to public housing. It's something that I will continue to do. If you live in my district, as a lot of people here do, please reach out to me. Chanel's my office in the back. You to reach out to her as well. We're going to go back to Albany very soon, and we have to talk about what we're going to do for public housing. We're going to talk about RAD, PAC, and the trust, things that work and things that aren't working. And it's important for all of us to know collectively what we collectively need to do. Because the future of public housing has to remain public and has to be effort by all of us to ensure there's funding and resources to make sure that happens. So I hope that's great. I'll hand it back over to my friends and leaders at Gold. And wait, we're going to thank the Girls Club for
Space is your space.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out.
And I'll sit down now. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Let's give him a round of applause. I want this to be a happy time. I need everybody to understand what it is we do. So, I want to start off with, who knows what RAD Impact is? Raise your hand if you know what RAD Impact is. Very good. But there's a few that do not. So let's go. First off, what is RAD PAC? Well, RAD is the federal name for the Rental Assistance Demonstration, and the New York City name is PAC, which means Permanent Affordability Commitment Together. RAD PAC shifts the responsibility for maintaining the NYCHA buildings from NYCHA in the city to private developers. RAD PAC allows NYCHA to transfer buildings, and I just said that, to landlords who then manage the buildings instead of NYCHA. We've assembled a panel of what I consider to be experts on the topic, and I'm going to introduce them to you all, and then we're going to open it up for them for questions. How are we going to do this? How do you want to ask questions? I have some questions for them. So we can start with the questions that I'm going to ask, and then we'll leave a few minutes, about 20 minutes at the end, so that everybody, if you have a question, you can answer it. Also, keep in mind that we do have legal representation in the back, so if you have a question that is personal to you, that you don't want to discuss in this public space, please go and speak to the lawyers. They have their hands raised if you turn around in the back. So let me introduce our esteemed panel. Right here on my left is Joshua Barnett. He's from Locus 375, DC 37, and AXME, and he is employed by NYCHA. Second, we have Christina Chase, who's the Advocacy Director for Take Root Justice and a staunch advocate for housing and all it entails. Thank you, Christina. Next, Luis Hernandez, Manhattan Legal Services. He's an attorney that is fighting for the best for those of us that have been kind of left out in certain situations. Moving on, many of you from the Lower East Side may know the infamous Aisha Torres. Aisha Torres is a TA president at Smith Houses, a member of the DCOP and CCOP, and we have finally the Risa Hupp, TA president at Campus One. Let me clarify something for you. Aisha still lives in the NYCHA development that has not been converted, whereas Dorisa lives in a development that has gone through the conversion. Am I not correct? Which means we have multiple perspectives on one situation. I'm going to pull up the questions now. Does anyone else have a question before I begin? No? All right. Oh, you have a question?
No, you go first.
Oh, I'm going to go first, yes. So, as you know, some of you registered, and we received questions from the residents that signed up. There are people that probably are not here that went in with the registration and placed questions. So we have a list of questions that we received. So I'm going to start out with an easy one, the one that's right on the top. What are NYCHA's plans with regard to the PAC program at Jacob Riis? There is no one here that can answer that very specific question. So
I can answer it.
you can answer?
I do.
Okay. Harvey's gonna.
I think Carlina could too if she's. So people from Jacob Riis, just to be clear, NYCHA approached the tenant leadership of Jacob Riis Houses a few months ago and talked to them about potential RAD PAC conversion. There's been no formal decision. There's been nothing except the TA president has met with NYCHA about it. It is our expectation, if that is to go forward at all, which there's no commitment, that there would be a vote of the Jacob Riis tenants whether they wanted to do RAD PAC, trust, or stay as public housing. But there's been no commitment at all. But there is conversation started with the TA leadership, and they are having meetings to talk about it. So.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna do a deep dive now. So I have a few questions. A recent physical needs assessment, which is called a PNA, that's a physical needs assessment, determined that NYCHA needs an estimated $78.3 billion to make capital repairs across its more than 300 campuses, including new flooring, windows, kitchen, appliances, upgraded outdoor spaces, and security systems, a 73% increase since its last assessment 5 years ago. NYCHA alleges inflation to be the cause of this increase. What are your thoughts on the findings of this needs assessment, and what do you think we can do? So we're going to start with Josh.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Josh Barnett. I'm actually an architect in the Asset Management Division at NYCHA, and this is something that we deal with every day, right? We design, or less and less, because more and more work is outsourced, the repairs that are necessary. And I never thought I'd hear myself say this, because the buildings are more than 50 years old. They've been subject for 4 decades of deferred maintenance and neglect and chronic underfunding, really lousy repairs a lot of the time. You might have a tendency to repair things really piecemeal, you know. They'll replace the doors, but they won't replace the lobbies. You know, they'll replace the toilets, but not the sinks. You know, you know much better than I do how this stuff works. But whereas I believe the physical needs assessment at 45 billion. This rate is a jump. As bad as inflation is, I'm taking that with a huge grain of salt, because it was NYCHA's internal figures that generated this physical needs assessment. I don't think they take the physical needs assessment often enough. I don't think they talk to the right people when they take the physical needs assessment. A lot of times they don't talk to the workers at the developments, who are the ones who really know what's deteriorated, where the work tickets are going or not going. You know, that kind of, again, some of you know much better than me. And I think that especially in the context of the drive towards privatization under RAD Pact and the trust, I think that, you know, this is more than anything a scare tactic. There's no question that the needs are dire and that the funding is necessary and that the numbers are huge, but I would really like to see an independent verification of the physical needs assessment before we take it at face value and say there's one more reason why we have to bring this in.
Thank you. Christina, I'd like you not only to answer, but lean into his concept of an independent verification.
Well, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. The most recently published PMA actually had a very small sample in contrast to the 2017 physical needs assessment. So you can't really compare the two. You know, they used statistical extrapolation to come up with those numbers, but I think every development deserves an independent physical needs assessment, and to have those numbers be readily available and digestible to residents to fully understand what decision their development needs to make moving forward, as well as what possibilities exist for funding. I just wanted to point out that $78.3 billion is over the course of 20 years. So we got to read the fine print, right? We can't compare it to the $40 billion that was supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, over the course of 5 years. So once again, we can't compare apples and oranges. And I just wanted to speak to the point that if we concluded that progress continues to fail us and we can't get that federal funding, then we need to start relying on our city and especially our state to step up. We are majority city workforce employees. We run the city, and the city needs to invest in us. And because we bring so much money to the state, so does New York State. And the state has a lot of power to step in and actually protect Section 9 public housing.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to field this question? Alisa, Louise, Mr. Racer?
Okay, so no one knows, as one of my board members in the past used to say, who better to assess our apartments than we, the residents who live in it? And one of the biggest issues that I have when they come to these numbers is that, I'll give you a couple of examples. We're in the process of rehabilitating with Visión Urbana a wellness center that was totally abandoned. And the numbers that NYCHA gave us were like $3.8 million. Meanwhile, these people who have come in to give us their, the outside consultants that we have, they're talking about maybe $1.1 million. So where is all this money coming from? And they try to blame the unions and all of that. It's not about that. Okay, and that's a big argument that I have with procurement all the time. When they talk, well, we have to go with the cheapest bidder, and that's really not true. There's a process. They're just too damn lazy, excuse my French, to do the work that's necessary so that we get quality work. So the assessment has to be done by the residents and the staff that live in that particular development. Now, if I've some blow-by-blow that's never been into any of our apartments or never lived in public housing.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sorry, I will piggyback on that. Me personally, I don't know if it should be done by residents, because I don't know about it. I'm not a carpenter. I don't know what needs to be assessed, what needs not. The only thing that I'm going to say with what took over, with what happened in my development, I feel it's 100% better than what we were living before. I know that for a fact. Our roofs were leaking. Our steam was being turned off at 10 p.m. We never had hot water. You could never get night to come out and fix elevators. We had the Hurricane Sandy, and these elevators, when these people came in there and lifted these elevators up, you should have seen the rust that was under these elevators. And I'm sure that they changed out parts and pieces because those elevators are still the same elevators, but they made sure it was more newer stuff compared to what, I don't know, sorry to disrespect, NYCHA wasn't doing any of this. When it came to my development, and my development ain't even that old, we came up in 79. They kept putting Band-Aids on us. Remember the first moved us in there, 1979? It was a 5-bedroom, beautiful apartment. We thought we was in a hotel. My mother was there to raise 10 kids. When I gave that apartment up tonight and moved into a smaller apartment, I gave that apartment up the same way my mother gave, the same way they gave it to my mother. But we do all know too, there's tenants in there that don't take care of stuff. And the wear and the tear, it's not coming, we can't keep saying NYCHA. So why would we take the assessments from tenants that they're the ones that's tearing up? I'm sorry, I just have to say that.
Aisa, would you like to respond?
Sure. I'll respond with, first of all, I'm going to talk about Smith, right? I have residents, including one, who we have made our apartments, we've worked it. I have spent money, and I've now told my residents, do not repair not one thing, because they're going to come in, knock your walls, and it's going to be destroyed. I spent hundreds of dollars putting up wall, splash pads, in the back, and I had to have it knocked down because I had a leak in my wall. However, I agree, right? I'm not a carpenter. However, some things are just common sense. It has nothing to do about if I have a PhD, don't have a PhD, don't have that. And the other piece of it is that a lot of the residents do have the skills necessary to manage it. And I really don't think that the vast majority of residents in public housing across the board, right, want to live with rats, roaches, or anything like that. Well, none of us do. And I think that a lot of us try to be proactive in how we deal with our apartments and with our neighbors, right? So I don't think, it's not. NYCHA, one of the biggest problems with NYCHA has been is the procurement process that they use, which is we're going to go with the cheaper bidder. And not only that, but the biggest thing is they go with the cheaper bidder, but they end up spending the money that is actually ultimately going to be, they know has to be spent to do it, right? And the other piece of it is, when I was on a campaign to be the chairperson of NYCHA, and my campaign was this: when NYCHA was run by residents for residents, it was never like this. The moment they started outsourcing, that was the end of it. The 718 call number is the worst thing that ever happened to the residents in public housing. And last night I was on the phone with the general manager because there was an issue and an emergency and it had to be handled, right? And so I just say this because I think it's, the people who are now running NYCHA don't have a clue about what it is to look like us. Don't have a clue about what it is that, but I will tell you this much. The property that we live on, I will tell you that Alfred E. Smith, the land, not the buildings, is worth $1 trillion. And I don't speak out of my mouth. Somebody who I trusted and respected, may they rest in peace, told me that from NYCHA, and then I got an outside person to verify it. And so we live on expensive property. This is not about what is happening to us. Has to do with money and property. And so I say this to the residents, right? I took an interview, not for ego, and I'm going to be honest. I didn't understand the magnitude of the article, I just did it because I wanted to show other residents and resident leaders that when you band together and you fight City Hall and you fight, and Harvey, who is the lead attorney for that cause, when we did a class action suit, we won. And everybody, you know, thought we were gonna lose, right? But we didn't, we won. But what was the strength? The courtroom had more people that are standing right in here. The residents showed up. And we stood firm, right? And so I say this, that we can make the changes and we have to make people accountable. We have to make our elected officials accountable. We have to make NYCHA accountable. We need to make our managers. But ultimately, you have to make the resident leaders accountable. You have to hold me accountable for what I do and what I say as you know, what I got elected for. You might not agree with me sometimes, however, we can have a dialogue and respect that.
Thank you. So in general, I would not interject, but Ms. Bookman lives in the same development that you live in.
I'm in
Council
Congress.
too.
Yes, and she wanted to make a comment about something.
About
that
the
was said.
CNA. Yes,
Christine, stand up so people can hear you.
hi everybody, I'm the president over at Campus Plaza 2 on East 13th Street in Avenue C. I just wanted to say back about the PNA. I requested a PNA, and only because we were approached for RAD several years ago. So what has happened, even though the 2017 PNA that they did on NYCHA, they're using that, but they also got outside people, because I said without that, I'm not even looking or going forward, and I have 2 of my board members here that could affirm that to me. So yes, tenants should be involved to a certain point, because we know where we live. We know about the internal problems within our apartments, so you're right. No, we're not carpenters, but we know the simple basics and everything, so I just want you to know it could be done. All right, that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. Next question. The RAD PAC funding plans involve converting NYCHA units from federal Section 9 to a federally funded project-based Section 8 program. And in the case of PAC, to new management, how do you foresee these programs will impact the residents, and what are some of the major concerns you have regarding these potential conversations? Anybody? Teresa?
Well, first of all, Campus Plaza 1 was always federal Section 8. How NYCHA got their hands on it, I don't know. But when in 79, when we first opened, we were always Section 8 federal housing. And back then, NYCHA had a lot of money. NYCHA did things back then, in 79. And then they started depleting and losing in the 80s, the late 80s. They stopped doing things. In all 40-something years that I lived there, I believe I had a new bathroom once. Never had new windows. They were taking our money from Section 8 to fund off the building of Section 9s in the back. But and whether people want to believe it or not, people always say this help sign the paperwork. I didn't sign any paperwork to get this done. This was done through the Obama administration. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell you straight up. It's one of the best things they ever did was take Section 8 out of NYCHA's hands. Because they were misusing our money too much. What I like about it is that you lose your job and you can't work. You walk into your management office and you let them know you lost your job. Your rent was $1,700. Your rent now drops to $0 instantly. It doesn't take a month. It doesn't take 2 months. It's less than 2 weeks. It happens. And during COVID, people were losing their jobs left and right. Were they walking into the management office doing this? No. During COVID, my office was open. I had people that put in for that other thing. But all they had to do was walk into the management office and tell the management office they lost their job, they lost their income, and their rent would have been dropped instantly. instantly. I don't know if that's with Section 9 or not, but I know it's somewhat like that. You go inside, you let them know your income source is somewhat, and they're supposed to drop your rent.
So, for the sake of time, I'm gonna hold everybody's answers for 3 minutes. And if anyone else would like to
I have
answer,
a
thank you.
question pursuant to what you were just speaking about. So you're talking about like Section 8 and like what do you mean different? I'm still trying to understand the difference between like Section 8 and Section 9. Like what protections would a development lose if they were to go from Section 9 to federal-based Section 8?
Who'd like to
can
answer
someone speak to
that?
that?
I can say a few things, and I know you have thoughts on that as well. One thing, with this whole public housing preservation trust legislation and idea, the city has said that unlike the RAD program, in which private landlord companies come into a previously public housing development, the trust, the whole idea is that, well, you're asking the city saying, if a Section 9 public housing development converts to a trust, it becomes Section 8, but the development will continue to be 100% public, and they say this very loud, right? 100% public, 100% public. I know I have seen in my office, in my legal work, that there are some things that are exactly the same between being fully public housing Section 9 and being a Section 8 tenant. Both sets of tenants, you're not supposed to pay more than 30% of your rent, right? You also have rights to succession to your family members, you have right to file for grievances, etc. But not everything is exactly the same between Section 9 and Section 8. One key difference that we have seen in our work is that tenants' ability to transfer. So when you live in public housing, say you're a person with a disability, or say you're a person that is a survivor of domestic violence, and you need to transfer outside of your neighborhood, outside of your development, you can request a transfer to NYCHA, and you are allowed to request a transfer to any other NYCHA development anywhere in the city, right? If you become a RAD tenant, you lose that ability. We had a client actually that was a disabled tenant.
1 minute.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a case that we brought. We had a client that was public housing, disabled, lived in the Bronx, needed a transfer to Lower Manhattan, around here actually, because this is where his medical providers are. He has this mobility impairment, he can't really move around. He requested that transfer as a NYCHA tenant. It was approved. Then his building, and he wasn't doing this, then his building converted to the RAD PAC program. He was kicked off of the wait list. He was told that he could no longer transfer to Lower Manhattan. And he was told, now you're a Section 8 tenant, here's a Section 8 voucher, you go look for housing yourself. And this is a person who is in a wheelchair, who walks with a cane. He does not have the ability at all to go out there and look for an apartment himself. So his life really turned upside down when his development went from public housing to Section 8, because he had an approved transfer already from the Bronx to Manhattan. The day that his development converted to Section 8, he lost the right to that transfer, and it was put on him to actually find an apartment for himself in the private market. And years went by before he could actually come to Lower Manhattan where he needed to be. So that is one area that we have seen that makes a big difference between the Section 9 and the Section 8.
Christine? We're gonna ask questions at the end.
I just wanted to respond. I think the biggest difference to me is that Section 9 public housing was created to directly invest in people. It was the government saying, we're not gonna let the private market close its doors to people and not give them homes. For many of us, public housing has been a godsend. I know for me personally, I was introduced as an advocacy coordinator, but I'm also a long-time NYCHA resident myself. I moved in when I was a child, and before that, we lived in a basement in a one-bedroom. Just me and my mom. We shared with our family, right? So to have our own apartment was a godsend. And I moved to Queensbridge in the 90s. And for me, what I understand the difference is that, like I said, it's investment in communities, whereas Section 8 was created to give federal subsidies to private landlords. Not to say anything of, not to, make any ruffles in the private market. Whereas public housing was established to say, we're gonna give housing, despite the private market not doing that. And so my biggest concern is that once we move from Section 9 to Section 8, our apartments are now in this like gray space where it's not public housing anymore. It's not necessarily private housing, you go like fair market rent. But what pains me the most is that Section 8 is supposed to be this better subsidies, but it's coming from the same source, which is the federal government. So NYCHA always tells us, oh, there's no money, you talk to Congress. But at the end of the day, Congress is choosing to invest that money elsewhere. So it's not that the money's not there, it's about where they're choosing to allocate it. And so private landlords are, placed here, while here, us, the tenants, are placed here. And so we need to change that right now.
Anyone? Joshua?
Yeah, just on,
Yeah.
okay, just one, I absolutely agree with that, but the one thing I would also weigh in on is between Section 8 and Section 9, private management versus public management. Not that I'm under any illusion about the way public management is. I mean, landlord is my boss, but we know how to go. But the point is that when I started working at NYCHA, there was 16,000 workers. We're down to 12,000 now, and I'm really worried. And one thing that's really sailing under the radar here is that once the conversions are done under Rad Pack or even the trust, and from a design point of view, the constructions are gorgeous. Baychester is fantastic, but who's going to maintain it, right? You have an existing workforce now that's a solid civil service, new workforce, and again, there's always a range of dedication, but basically, people dedicated to doing their job, and 3,000 of those workers are also NYCHA residents. But whereas, once you have a private management company, now all of a sudden, it's a private landlord. They're in there for the bottom line. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. And so the initial renovations might be really nice. And I don't live in public housing, so if I lived there, I would be the last one to tell somebody, this is where you should or shouldn't take the renovations. That's completely up to the resident. But the fact of the matter is that we don't know what's happening to the civil service and maintenance and even resident workers in places like Baltimore and San Francisco and Minneapolis and Buffalo and Cambridge that have had these mass conversions, and it's something that NYCHA isn't gathering data on, isn't telling us anything about. So all these renovations are going to have to be maintained. And you're right, the money is in the military budget, but that's a separate question. But the fact is that we need a stable, solid workforce to be maintained, and the RAD legislation was basically written pretty hastily. And there really isn't anything about maintaining minimum staffing levels or having people hired on the long-term service. So I admit I wish I had more facts on that, but that's what I think we would resident tenant union to find this out. But that's a big concern for me as a union worker, and I think for the people who live there as well.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next question. So, the Ocean Bay houses in Far Rockaway was the first development to be transferred under NYCHA's RAD plan. But over a 26-month period, 80 households were evicted. Should residents be concerned about that? Okay, Mr. Ricks?
I'm gonna say no. And the reason why I'm gonna say no, if I know what happened in my development, it happened in Ocean Bay, it happened in Campus Plaza. If your mother is living in an apartment and she's the only one on that lease, and you've been living there with her for 20 years, and your name is down on that lease, and when these owners come in and they take over, and your mother passed, that was your mother's apartment, not yours. Those are the people that lost those apartments. If they names were not on the lease, like people, I'm just going to say.
I would like, in your development, those were the individuals.
Those were the individuals.
But that's your particular development.
Right, that's my, right.
Yes, just clarify that.
That was
because
my
that's
development.
one particular development.
Those are the ones that lost their apartments. The ones that were, like if it was your mom's apartment and you wasn't on the lease, those are all apartments that got cleared out in Campus Plaza that I know of. There was nobody in there that lost their apartment in Campus Plaza that was on that lease. That I know of. And nobody ever came to me saying that they were losing their apartment and they were on the lease, they couldn't afford it, or anything like that, because we would have rectified that. As far as we work, as far as I know.
Thank you.
I can't speak to what's happening in housing court, so maybe you can, but what I can speak to, I'm also part of my resident association at Ravenswood Houses. And I've been taken on one of the PAC tours, and even from my own property manager, who has closed other developments in the past, she says she's fond of RAD because it gets rid of the bad residents. And so I'm curious of what that means. And I think when I went to the tour, one of the things that was stressed heavily was how cameras are used as a way to keep people accountable. And don't get me wrong, we need cameras in certain areas, but if it's going to be us under constant surveillance and being watched and any little thing, whether maybe somebody's smoking in the hallway, we don't know, it could be anything that may be something that violates the household rules. My fear is that may end up leading someone towards eviction, because what we're finding out is that people aren't even being granted the grievance process they're supposed to. And the private property managers are taking tenants straight to housing court for I guess, small violations like that.
Yeah, I can add that. I think 2 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, NYCHA put out this announcement that it had tens of thousands of non-payment cases in housing court where tenants are in their careers, and that NYCHA was going to drop, I think it was 30,000 cases, right? And that moving forward, it would only focus and sue tenants in housing court that only had more than 2 years worth of rent arrears. And it did that because of the pandemic, because of the crisis, etc., right? I can say I've never seen a private landlord do something like that. I believe that NYCHA does have the ability to make the decision to not go after suing a bunch of tenants because it is public housing, because it is housing that is not meant to draw a profit. Whereas private housing is meant to draw a profit for the landlord that is running it. So I can talk about what I have seen in my role representing tenants. I do think that private landlords are far more eager to try to evict tenants that owe rent, to try to evict tenants that they don't like, than what I see in public housing.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing about that? Because not to totally disagree with you, because I generally agree. NYCHA only did that because we made them do that. We put so much political pressure on them to do that. And a private landlord can forgive rent, and NYCHA can't. So we had to amend the statute for ERAP funding this year,
Right.
because tenants all over the city got money for ERAP, but NYCHA tenants were the lowest priority. We lobbied together with all our colleagues, and Grace and Brian, and folks really worked hard to get that money for NYCHA because they weren't allowed under federal law to forgive the rent for our private landlord can. I'm not saying NYCHA's doing a good job, and I agree that they did that under duress because we made them do it. But at the same time, there's this balance that we all have to be mindful of. That they can't forgive rent, even though we think they should have the authority. We'd have to, John's here, we'd have to change the federal law that allows the NYCHA to forgive rent arrears, which they currently can't do.
And which we're working on.
But also, Harvey, I'm sorry, with the same token, because we live in NYCHA, I know people who haven't paid rent in a year and, they're just piling up a rent bill, but they're not in court yet, as opposed to maybe with a private landlord. That process would be a
I
lot
have not
further.
seen private landlords forgive rent.
Can I interject
Go
about
ahead.
NYCHA, and rents? Okay, so they can't forgive, however, NYCHA does make arrangements with the tenant to adjust their rent if that was the issue. Give them a credit, right? Because this is all under the 964. But also to make an agreement to pay the back rent and pay the present rent. So it's not, so if you owe $500, right, and your rent is $200, they can make an arrangement up to almost a year, depending on the amount, and then you can pay $25 over the $200 to pay until your rent is paid back. I don't know about private landlords, right? But I'm just saying the process. The other process, right, even for the situations that we talked about, people that weren't on the lease, NYCHA has, under Section 9, right, if if you learn on the lease and the person dies, there's a whole grievance process that takes almost 2 years before you're thrown out in the street in NYCHA, right? So you have, ultimately, if you don't win your case, you've had 2 years to at least to begin to apply for NYCHA on your own, to look for another apartment versus you're out in the street. And so I'm real clear about what my position is about the trust, about, you know, not going to RAD and doing that, because people like me ultimately, and even though they make promises, you know, that I would not be able to apply for Section, if I were to apply for an apartment for Section 8, I would be over income, right? And that is the story for a lot of seniors, because we have a pension, we have Social Security, right? And that is a real reality. And so we have to gauge. Ultimately, you know, my position is we hold our elected officials accountable, not locally, statewide, and Fed. And I've been trying to convince my co-chairs that we need to march to Washington, D.C. Not only us, but the whole public housing, right? Because public housing has become an issue, not only in the United States, but even in Australia. It's crazy, right? And so we as a people have to stand up. We also have to hold everybody else accountable. We need to also exercise. If we say we're going somewhere, people need to get on the bus and join us. I have better things to do than getting up at 4:30 in the morning and taking a 3-hour ride. Trust me. We need to do that. We all need to hold each other accountable. We need to hold ourselves accountable. Not only the resident leaders, but individually ourselves about making decisions. We need to go to our resident association meetings. We need to hold people accountable. No, and I know there's a whole lot of resident leaders here in the room, and I thank you. We need to not make excuses. What I've done is I've gone on Zoom now. I got a phone. You call in the meeting if you can't make it physically. But we, the residents, have to hold even the resident leadership that we elect. We have to hold them accountable. We cannot continue to let it, everything's going smoothly and not show up at meetings and not do what needs to get done. You know, because you can pass them up. And part of it is also holding NYCHA accountable.
Thank
Holding
you.
out.
They've done no training for the recent RAs. I'm new to my RA, and Zoom does not count to me. I need like an in-person training. They haven't done that.
Well, they're doing the 964.
No, that doesn't count. That's because of the CCO.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Don't sidebar in the panel, but I need to move on. Okay, here we go. So, question number 4. NYCHA residents whose developments are not already part of PAC are eligible to vote in future elections to take place one at a time at campuses selected by NYCHA. In the vote, residents can elect or decline the option to be part of PAC or the Preservation Trust, or continue on in traditional Section 9 housings. At least 20% of households at a given campus will need to take part for the voting results to stand. This means that in a development of 1,000 units, 200 people will decide the fate of the development. What is your take on the 20% voting rule?
I mean, it's super low, right? I mean, just to clarify, much more than 20% of people can vote, right? So it's a minimum, right? So if there's an election and 80%, 90% of the people vote, that's great. But if only 20% of heads of households show up, that final result will be valid. So only 20 out of 100 people can decide the fate of this development. In fact, when NYCHA put out the voting rules first, they proposed 10%.
That was supposed to happen at the end.
When NYCHA put out the voting rules, they proposed 10%. And then they opened it up for comment, and all of our organizations, many people here like commented it should be at least 50% more than that. And so in response to the overwhelming amount of comments, they increased it from 10 to 20, which many of us think is still very low for a democratic, or any democratic vote. But just to be clear, the original intent was to make it 10% voter threshold.
Right, meanwhile, co-ops is like 66%, like there's different, it's just a higher.
NYCHA's board requires a quorum of 50% in order to make any
50
decision.
plus 1, I think.
50 plus 1, 50 plus
So,
1.
and I didn't have that, have at least been the standard?
Yeah.
Cool.
So the fight, and we will continue to fight to have that amended because it should be 51%. This is life altering. This is not something that you can go back and say, oh, I don't want to do this now. It doesn't work like that. So the vote should be 51. And also, the residents need to understand, right? You need to come out and vote, and you need to do that, and it has to be done. I think that when there are residents who are for it, they might be vocal and the ones who are against it. But the bottom line is getting the residents, all of them, to come out and vote a yes or a no, and understanding and giving them all the facts. Not having the facts and not understanding, right? It was real facts. We went to Sonos, so a lot of us were there. Puerto Rico, the public housing there, that is rad, right? But this was the clincher though. It's working, and I'll tell you, you'll never guess why. Why? Because the people who are running the rad, the developers, are former housing residents.
So we're going right back
which
to
has
the
been my
source.
damn campaign for the last 2 years. When it's done by residents, for residents, right? Whatever. It works because there's a caring and there's an understanding of where I'm coming from, and not I'm looking down at you, right? Because you people don't understand.
I would like to interject slightly. This question about 20%, I'm going to ask everyone here. How do you feel? Do you think 20% of the residents voting on changing your life is fair?
No.
So then we have to do something about that. I'm going to move on to the question, next question. So, clearly you all know that we do work that goals and taking justice, save Section 9, various individuals out here trying to fight a good fight. So, I think that you can say that our organizations have been working together in response to many things. We worked with the people from New York, where Luis is from. My brain is not working, I'm tired. Okay, so please forgive me. On the arsenic issue earlier this year, I want to know how that's going. There, so that's it. And that's for Reese Houses. Anyone here from Reese Houses? Of course there is. Oh, you? And I know there's another one back here. Where's she at? Oh, okay, there she go, and a little one. So I'd like you to tell us what's going on at Reese Houses and how we can make sure that we get everybody involved and on board with what we need to have happen.
This is accountability. We have a private together and you're asking me to report back.
In front of everybody, yes, absolutely.
So those of you obviously living at Reese, and many of you may have heard earlier this year, there was an announcement that there were unsafe levels of arsenic in the drinking water at Jacob Reese. And then something curious happened, which is that the city took back the announcement and said, oh, we actually got it wrong, the testing the first time, it's all fine, it's not unsafe, move on, right? And so, obviously, many residents at Jacob Reese were not trusting this, they're the ones drinking this water. And so, Ghost was organizing residents that came to our office to discuss various options. And we did a couple of things. One thing is that we did a little bit of legal research because I'm not sure that it's widely known, but New York voted on a constitutional amendment in November of 2021, establishing essentially an environmental justice constitutional right for all New Yorkers. It literally reads, every person in New York is entitled to clean air, clean water, and a healthful environment. And it's in the Constitution of the state of New York. And that's the right that every one of us has living in New York, right? And so we have been exploring what does that mean for residents that are living under the conditions that public housing residents are living, and in particular for residents that have to go living in risk through this situation where they're drinking unsafe water, right? And the first step we took there, my office, Legal Services, in collaboration with CODE, was to do a FOIL request, right? Freedom of Information Law request, where we are asking NYCHA to turn over to us, and by us, it will be turned over to CODE and to all the residents of the people we get it. All documents that NYCHA has concerning this situation with the arsenic in the water, right? We want transparency. We don't want only the documents that NYCHA has chosen to make public online. We want every single conversation that NYCHA has with the Department of Health, that NYCHA had with the mayor's office, concerning the testing, concerning what went wrong with the testing, and concerning what response NYCHA has taken to make sure that people at risk are actually drinking safe water. So that's one. And then the other thing that we're asking for is every single document that relates to how NYCHA ensures that it is providing a healthy environment to residents living in public housing, not only at risk, but public housing as large, right? Unsurprisingly, NYCHA has taken many months to respond to our FOIL request. Did not turn over any documents yet. We actually filed an internal administrative appeal to force them to turn over the documents. If they still ignore us, we will then sue them in state court to force them to turn over the documents. So they're not being responsive so far, but we will keep pressing because these are documents that are public. Every document NYCHA has had concerning what happened at risk with the arsenic in the water and how NYCHA ensures that public housing residents are living in healthy environments, all of that is public. And all of that NYCHA needs to turn over to us based on our FOIL request. So far, we're still pushing NYCHA to turn those documents over, and that is the update.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
can I
Go ahead.
interject for a second?
Interject.
So, for those of you that are not familiar with me, my name is Cesar Reyes. I am the Director of Organizing with Goals, right? So, I'm definitely very excited about this conversation that we're having today. But I want to just kind of, piggyback a little bit from what Lisa's sharing with us so that everyone can get, a deeper understanding of how important this process is, right? Unfortunate, and it is very unfortunate, the situation that happened at Reese, but I think that we also have to begin to think about a lot of these processes through this systemic lens and how we can approach and find the solutions for it that is for the benefit of everybody, right? So, this effort is taking that into consideration, and we're not just talking about the water situation, right? But we're also speaking about air quality, we're speaking about the mold, right? The disrepair or lack of repairs inside of your apartment that ultimately create these environmental hazards inside of your respective apartments, inside of your respective developments, right? And how this, in effect, contributes to like the high asthma rates, for example, right? A lot of the sicknesses and illnesses that we have within our respective communities. And holding NYCHA accountable. That has been part of like the conversation tonight about thinking about ways that we can hold NYCHA accountable to the residents and the community at large, that their practices, have been effective because of their inability to actually respond. So I welcome you all to really continue, right? Hold us accountable as well as advocates in continuing to put this pressure on NYCHA, continuing this process, and also for you guys to be accountable yourselves, your communities, right? And be part of that process as well and continue to support the effort. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I think that it's a tremendous thing that Manhattan Legal Services and our organization, as well as some of our other partner organizations, are beginning to have. And we're just looking for the support from the residents at large.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm going to open the floor up now for questions. Does anybody have something that they would like to ask any Anyone on our distinguished panel?
I just want to make a comment.
Okay.
Louise, about when we were talking about court. There's also other, again, Christine Bocaine compliment. There's also other reasons for evictions. Okay? We have a lot of families that take off people from their lease because they don't want to pay an increase in their rent. Okay? And then their rent piles up. Also what you said. People just assume and just not pay the rent. And it piles up. There are so many reasons. People rent rooms. They take over families' apartments that they're not even living in, and they're renting rooms and making bucks on the side. So there's all these different reasons, and you only came out with this one instance, you know? And it kind of bothered me. So I'm sharing that with you. Also, about the transfer policy, about this person, I never heard of such a thing. I am in the process of Brad. It's taken me 5 years for my board and tenants to get to 2023 to finally agree. Only because of all the requests that we got. With the help of Goals, who has helped us with our surveys with tenants. And out of 200, I believe it's 200 calls, because I don't want to hear what I got to say for them. 204 families, I got 72 responses. And that was only because we had a couple of tenants that were totally against Section 9 being converted to Section 8, and they were trying to do undermining and putting postings in our buildings. Don't sign these papers. Don't trust Gold. Don't trust this one. They're being paid by NYCHA. So as far as percentage, I believe you're right. It should be higher. My goal was 50%. Okay, but I got only 72 responses. So every time I had a tenant meeting, I said, everybody, before you leave, I have our surveys here. I need you to review them. I need you to sign them. Oh, we can't take them home? No. Now you got to do it here. It took me almost a year and a month just to collect these surveys. It's no joke. And then you're going to have the tenants that are going to fight you. Oh, I don't care what housing does. I'm not signing nothing. So you're going to have that percentage. All right? So we have to rethink. We have to rethink the whole thing. I was totally against RAD. I called all of my officials. I got a lawyer, and we sat down at the table. And we got CBOs, including Goals. And they've been working with us these last 5 years to get to this point. And I thank Goals, and they know the route that I've been on, and they know what the struggle has been. But right now, RAD will be the right decision for our, our complex.
You said it's been a 5-year process, so what did NYCHA agree to change over the whole process of the 5 years? Like, what did they propose when they came to you, and where are you now?
Transparency. That was the main thing. Transparency. We needed to know what you're going to do and who you wanted to bring in, what you're going to do for us, how much money was going to come in for us, and about these P&As that you were talking about as well. I did not want to just go by the 2017 P&A. I didn't. And I wanted an outside. I wanted an outside source. I didn't just want NYCHA's people to come in and do that P&A. Okay? And I was part of that. And part of the board that was able to attend during those, the assessments being done on the grounds. And they went to 50 apartments. That was the goal, 50 apartments out of the 204, I think it is. So, and they saw what needed to be done. My concern is not the cosmetic, my concern is the internal. I'll leave all that cosmetic stuff to all the committees that will be developed in the next couple of months, because we finally have selected a person, or should I say company. And let's remember, NYCHA always is gonna be your main landlord, because they still own the land, no matter what. No matter what, they own the land.
Okay, thank you, Miss Bookin. Mr. Hall, I just happened to know this gentleman.
Thank you. Number one, what this brother said is very important. This goals meeting is fantastic, and please keep this going, all right? I've come all the way up here from Gun Hill Road in the Bronx, all right? I'm here to get educated, all right? This has been the only educational circumstance in existence in all these. I'm sorry, Marquise Jenkins is not here.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Marquise, this gentleman here.
Wait, I cannot let y'all take over my
Okay,
town hall.
I just want to commend Marquise Jenkins. He has educated me on all the panelists, about all the panelists you have here, because they met periodically to educate. During the pandemic, no one knew anything. Now we're having arguments regarding certain things. I like what you just mentioned, and you forgot to talk about how people take dogs and put them in the park.
Yeah, well, see,
sell dogs to get money to pay rent.
We're trying to keep track of time.
But that being said, this is a very important, this problem is magnificent. I'm telling you, it's bigger than you've never imagined. We're talking about trying to difference between Section 8 and Section 9. You have to hold your own, all right? I personally, I'm a Section 9 advocate. I will not allow Section 8 to come anywhere near it. That's my circumstances, all right? I have no one with a Section 8 voucher living in Gun Hill Alley. So I am a Section 9 advocate. But you have to understand this. And you're right. We should have a needs assessment. It should be done by professional folks along with your association. We're talking about getting a lot of people in a development coming to meetings, and people say, well, I'm only going to be here for 5 years, so why should I come? This is the mentality that we're fighting against. All right, this is a serious battle. People don't want to come out. They don't care. Only when it hits them. That's right. When you gotta go get that U-Haul because you out, that's when it hits you. All right? This is I'm just happy to come to something like this. It's very, very important. The difference between Smith and Campos, very interesting. Very interesting. Which way are you gonna go? Why are you gonna go that way? What data? We talk about NYCHA, we talk about the books, the accounting. I don't know, I heard they had 2 to 3 sets of books. This is another one. Mr. Hall.
So I gotta interject real quick, it's 3 minutes,
Yeah, I'm sorry. But basically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, keep hope alive with this, all right? And educate somebody who doesn't know. That's important.
Right, knock on the neighbor's door and tell me about
We have a question in the
Wait,
back.
no, first I need to say, thank you, panel, for participating. I have to announce that because Miss Aisha has a tenant association meeting that she needs to leave. Okay? So we want to thank them for coming. We'll take your questions. She's the only one that Mr. Santiago.
All right. So we're gonna go 1, then 2.
One question, and it's a question.
Wait,
based
Mr.
on-
Mercado, you have to, I can do this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jose Santiago. I serve as the president of the Resident Association at Gompers on Pitt Street in the Land. God bless everyone. It's just information that I hear that I want to bring and in the form of a question, because I don't know what's right, what's wrong, if it's accurate, if it's reliable. The information I'm listening, I'm hearing, is that when it comes to the voting, right? 20% will decide the fate of everyone, of that development, right?
120% can.
20% is the voting threshold, so it's still a majority of the vote, but if only 20% show up.
That's who makes the decision.
Yeah, we don't agree with that. We want at least 51.
This one right here, it's heads of household.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
not any 20%.
Right.
That's right.
And we want at least 51%. But the information I'm hearing is that in certain developments throughout the city, they don't allow the tenants or the residents to vote. They leave it up to the resident association. Is that true? Yes or no?
I think you're speaking more about RAD PAC, and
Yeah.
RAD, which is different from the preservation trust. Because the preservation trust, you can vote as a resident. RAD and PAC usually now approach the REs and TAs. Before, in its early iterations, and when they started 2012, they just took over, which is why.
That's not true. That's not true.
They.
Please, let her finish her point, and then you can interject.
Abilities to participate at the levels that they do today, and that's because residents fought back. That always was because residents fought back and said, we need our rights as paper. And so I think there's also a difference in how what development is converted. If you already Section 8, I don't know how that's actually a conversion. I want to contextualize and I want to learn more from you. But I think, for example, with Ms. Booking, like, not every RA and TA person is involved. Like, shout out to you, right? I can't tell anyone how to vote, but you took the initiative to be involved, to get legal assistance, to get community input, organizing. You have, not every RAT did that. And so, and that's the other, the T is like, how are you gonna be my official? You're gonna make these decisions without even telling me.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not saying that's all right there.
Yes.
That happened to some, and some TAs were also played, and I mean, I don't want to spill too much. But I know that.
But it's true, they want to.
My president told me that when she was at tables that I would, because I'm not a president, that the other presidents didn't even fully understand what was happening to their own relatives.
There you go.
A lot of them were elders and going through their own couldn't be fully present. And then on top of that, you have COVID come out and say it's just a hot mess, and it's just so many fires we're trying to burn out. But shout out to you for doing that and being involved. But that wasn't the case for every development. And so without residents having to say it and being fully informed, and at least you tried, right? I know that it's difficult to fully inform residents on these different things because it's so much to take in. I'm a resident.
Door knocks.
I get paid for this, and I'm still learning every single day, right? But that's another thing I want to bring up. If NYCHA can knock on my door multiple times a week to collect rent that I owe, because they could knock on my door multiple times a week to try to let me know about what's happening in my development.
Go ahead, finish. You finished? Thank you for coming. A hand okay.
One, and then we'll go two.
1, 2.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Question. And based on what, I'm sorry, I just Christina said, that there are many TA presidents that don't have a clue, they don't fully understand, and they were given a choice of either having the entire development take the vote, or the president can take the vote, make the vote for the development. If, based on this, and not fully understanding, oh yeah, I'm the TA president, I can do that. Oh yeah, what a great idea. Brad is saying, you decided to take the vote, make the vote for the entire development, and your residents cannot vote. Can that be retracted?
Reclaim your vote.
But that is the question, because this particular TA president is trying to retract that. Brad won't let him. How can it be retracted so his residents can vote on whether or not Brad or whatever?
So I'm sorry, man. What's your name? What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Patricia.
Okay. All right, Ms. Patricia. So here's where I'm going to interject real quick. One mic, everyone, because I think it's very important for us to take the time and opportunity to really listen to the information that we are being, given today. We do have one of your district leaders here that would like to take the time and opportunity to answer. And I will also turn it to. We have two?
Yeah, right there. It's right earlier.
I'm sorry. Marquise, you wanted to respond to that?
I think that's a great question because I think so many people conflate the two programs, right? RAD and PAC, right? One program was introduced and passed on a federal level. The federal government did not give residents or tenant association presidents the ability to vote on if they want to be part of RAD or PAC. That doesn't mean that a tenant association can fight to stop it. That doesn't mean that a tenant association can support it. They just weren't given a vote. They were given a set of procedures of these are the things that have to happen before your development is converted. So the TA president, nor do the residents get to vote for RAD and PAC, but the TA president has a lot of influence. And you want to make sure you have a tenant association president like the one here, who's going to do the due diligence to do the homework, the research, and everything. Who you vote for your TA matters because they are representing you in these conversations. The trust you do have ability to vote. But first, NYCHA has to come to your development, or your TA president can invite NYCHA to your development and say, you know what, we're interested in going through the trust process. Once you go through that process, you have 30 days of voting. So you get to vote for the trust. You do not get to vote for RAD and PAC. In both instances, you can get organized to stop it. You can get organized to support it. But you have the law gives you a vote in the trust. The law does not give you a vote in RAD and PAC.
I think where the confusion lies also is that on the ballot, you can vote for RAD and PAC, whereas that wasn't the option.
This is the way that this has been configured is actually very confusing. I understand the confusion. So far, as Marquis said, NYCHA is the one who picks the developments that are going to undergo RAD-PAC conversion, and in the best case scenario, is doing so in consultation with the tenant association, right? The legislation that created the trust created this voting procedure so that residents can choose whether to remain public housing or vote into the trust. But then, in the ballot, this is happening in Austrian houses right now. Austrian houses is the first development that's undergoing a trust vote. The ballot also has the RAD-PAC option. So it has three options: public housing, trust, or RAD-PAC. So now we have a situation in which, and I'm not even super clear on this myself, now we have a situation where apparently NYCHA continues to pick developments to convert into RAD, but then NYCHA is also holding elections in other developments where RAD is also one of the voting options. And so if this is a little confusing, it's a little confusing to me as well.
1 minute, excuse me. Okay, I know this is the second question, but Aisha, I think, wanted to make a comment on what you were just talking about prior to her leaving.
So, what I want to say is, RAD, from what I understand, based on a meeting I had with the people from RAD, ultimately, what the TAs have to do if they now change their mind and they're in that process, you have to put it in writing, you have to get your residents to sign off on it with you and your board, and you push back. Send it to your congressman, right? But the other piece that nobody's talking about under Section 9 is resident management, right? And I want to leave everyone with that thought about doing resident management, pushing NYCHA and our elected officials to make sure that they put money, starting from the mayor down, in the bucket for resident management so that we can educate ourselves, so that we can run our own developments, because sure as hell, not NYCHA and all these other developers can run the rest of, and I tell you this with tears in my eyes. COVID taught us that we can run our developments. A happy new year.
Patricia? Okay, thank you, Aisha. Are you, hold on, wait. I think Joshua had a comment as well.
Just a very quick point, because I don't get it, I'm not a NYCHA resident, right? But there's a lot of confusion outside of vital information, but this is not an arcane, obscure question. This affects everybody in the city, right? A lot of times, people, even in the housing movement, being public housing, that's them, that's over there. You know, we're fighting for rent control, we're fighting for rent regulation, we're fighting for eviction and all that's great, but there's a national housing crisis. There's a citywide housing crisis. The shelters are overflowing. There's not a county in this country where somebody who works full-time minimum wage can afford the price of a one-bedroom apartment. Not anywhere in the country. And so, it's not that we want to defend public housing, we need more of it, right? More than ever. And so, but the point is, though, that the housing movement, like a lot of movements, really tends to be very siloed, right? We're moving on parallel paths, and it does get back to when we talk about the physical needs assessment, because if you look at the developments that are selected for that impact, and also for the trust, a lot of times it's not the most physically distressed developments that are chosen. It's in the neighborhoods with the highest rising property values, right? This is,
We know that's
this is human gentrification, and so, it's just a matter of, building ties, and knowing who the allies are in this kind of struggle, because, we all accept in this country public education, public transportation, but for some reason there's a stigma against public housing, right? That's what we need to break down. And so I think that, this is part of the larger struggles. I think it's really important just to connect the dots while we're having this kind of struggle. Because again, this doesn't just affect the people who live in northern houses or whatever. If public housing goes down, this is the last stop of affordable housing we have in this city, right? The developers always run this town. Can't get houses right around the center. Property values are incalculable. And the developers are salivating to see that, and this is the last bulwark against that. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Next, you gentlemen, you are next. I get to you, you're fourth. You, Mr. Ricardo, and then Sadie.
Mr. Negron, team president of Atlantic College.
Yes.
I lived in Atlantic for 66 years. We're not going to move back. It's been 6 years. My issue is the one with the gentleman speaking about the harassment of tenants. We have several tenants that are being harassed by people who are selling drugs and getting high all night. They make police reports. The issues that they had were being disrespected and cursed at and telling they were getting. Tenant made several police reports.
Okay.
Police have done nothing. They've done nothing. These people are afraid. Police are not doing their job. Got senior citizens afraid to come out of their home.
Okay.
For the issue with
What is the question?
the question is, when are we going to get to know?
In terms, well, see.
In terms of the police responding to the
So that's not actually on the topic. What I would suggest is that you talk to some of the legal representatives.
Yes, there's some of the people about getting trash. They're trying to get a transfer.
Oh, that's okay.
They're trying to get a transfer, nothing to respond. Management.
But I believe the transfer process is through NYCHA. Oh,
Yes, she's trying to take everything, but there's nothing being done.
Okay, so I still suggest, sir, that you speak with Miles in the back, because he can help you create a plan of action to address that. Thank you. Next, you.
I'm cheating, I don't have a question. But I wanted to point out that I think everybody has this handout from our PPH. I'm Paula, I work with T Group, with Christina. This is a list of things that the state can do when, as Harvey said, they go back to Albany very soon to fix some of the problems that we've been talking about today. I think everybody has this. If you look on the back, the ballot confusion that Luis was describing is the second one from the bottom. One of the things that's on here is requiring the independent physical needs assessment. So this is a very real list. You get in touch with your elected officials in Albany. These are the changes that could make the preservation trust process a little more transparent and a little bit less bamboozling.
Yeah. Okay, so that was 1, 2. You were 3, Sadie. You were 3. You were 4? Wait a minute. No, Mr. Mercado.
I don't want him yelling at me.
No, I want to yell at me either. Thank you. Mr. Mercado, your question?
I'd like to comment with respect to the
the price and of the real estate that NYCHA has in its portfolio. Make no mistake about it, the choices that are being made by NYCHA is based on the property value of what the building is worth.
Please stand up and say that to make sure everybody heard that.
I won't reveal my sources, but make 100% that your building is being picked or not picked based on the property value of your building. Case in point, Chelsea was chosen because the developer wanted to buy. Chelsea is one of the most expensive real estate properties in New York City, in Manhattan. It's probably one of the top 3 developments that NYCHA has. That's why Chelsea is being converted, is being built for the city right now, based on property value sold.
Oh, in conjunction with what Mr. Mercado said, Christina's going to tell you this.
I completely agree. I don't know how many people have seen the plans, but to me it's a complete land grab, and I think it's the saddest story of how scrap packet conversion can go wrong. Because for years, residents and other community leaders were working together, and in that working group, they said no demolition. And I don't know how they can turn around and I think in 2021 is when the federal government started allowing for Section 18/RAD mixed applications, and when you do Section 18, it allows for demolition. And that's my biggest fear when we do RAD pack in the long run. It's like, we may agree to one thing in the beginning, but we don't know what it's gonna mean in 5 years. And then furthermore, even after the conversion, what those apartments are gonna look like 20 years down the line. Because we all came into beautiful public housing apartments. What happens 20 years down the line? At least for my.
So I want to.
Can you tell what section 18 is?
You need to tell everybody what Section 18 is.
Section 18 is one of the applications that a housing authority submits to HUD. So HUD must approve these applications. And I wanted to point to that with FEC is technically, by FEC, excuse me, I mean Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea, and Chelsea Edition, is that technically they're moving like they got the green light from HUD, but they actually haven't had that application fully submitted and accepted, and they're still doing an environmental impact study. And so they're still open comment period to say no, but I don't appreciate how NYCHA is moving forward as if it's a done deal. I think it's really disheartening for the residents.
You'll be 6. You'll be 5.
But most importantly, I just wanted to bring back the attention to the maps that they showed. They want to move people into buildings, take the rest of the land, and put market rate housing there. At the same time, you implement a policy under HAMA where higher income Section 9 residents who who exceed a certain limit now have to either are evicted or have to pay higher rent. I don't understand how you're saying we want to deconcentrate poverty, but you're pushing out people who've lived there for decades, whose families have lived there, who was raised by their neighborhood, who call that home. I take it personal because I'm a new mom. My son lives, my son is a project baby, and that's beautiful because he's going to Rochelle to Spider. I love it. That means he's going to be loved on. That means he's going to be loved. That means I got to babysit. My neighbor has watched my son more than my own mother because that's how real it is. Because we look out for each other. Miss, I used to laugh, but we cared for each other when nobody else did, and I think we're going to continue doing that. I'm digressing, but I just wanted to point out that once we convert, it's a permanent conversion. There's no going back. And I'm not against Section 8. We need Section 8 vouchers everywhere. We need landlords to accept those Section 8 vouchers. But I don't think it should be at the cost of losing public housing.
So I have this strange feeling that Marquise wants to piggyback.
No, Christina did a great job, but I just want to hone in specifically on what Section 18 is. It's an application that the housing authority submits to HUD that allows the housing authority to do one of two things. One, demolish the development, outright tear it down, completely demolish it. The second is to hand it over to another for-profit, non-profit, or even residents, right? So all to say is that the Section 18 application is to take your development off the Section 9 block.
Okay, thank you. See.
I'll take it back off that Section 18 now, because that Section 18 is
creating mass eviction, and people are sitting there like it's A-okay, but they're not studying the ground, the land, because it takes 75 years for you to find out the effects after they did that construction, after they demolished that building, because it goes into the water system, which is your ecosystem, which is what you rely on. All that stuff is asbestos, lead, or whatever they do, because I live right at Reese. So it all gets in the air. And then you wonder why people got asthma. You wonder why kids sitting around, you're like, why is my child got speech delay? My daughter has speech delay. But you would never thought. And my thing is, to have your home literally kill you, you're like, now you should just fix it. Do what you have to do. Don't sit there and say, Rad and Pack is going to fix it. No, Rad and Pack is going to add to the madness. And that's why you have, global climate, accelerated migration. You got the asylum seekers. And when that young woman up there was talking about how some people name on the leases, sorry miss, not all my family was born in America. They migrated. So they don't have to be on the list. Okay? But they're my family. So I'm going to look out. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to let NYCHA sit there and take advantage of my household and what I need to do and have a quality of life like everybody else. And we're tired of being disenfranchised. So the money that you sitting there in the building, no, you're taking our homes. So y'all need to wake up. But we're going to reclaim our vote, because all I got to say is if you don't have the assembly person and all the council people getting in line with us, we need to reclaim our vote next year. Because all of it was a little, photo op. I love you, Harvey. But last week I was just like, they playing in my face yet again. Stop playing.
Okay, any more questions?
That's it. They better get it together. Oh, the oversight. The oversight. I forgot to mention about the oversight.
Okay.
So with the ERAB, they need an oversight for that. With the vote, they need an oversight for that. And with the survey, AKA vote, because I heard about that situation that happened to one of my friends at Northwood Houses. Oh, I saw Barbara McFadden and all them other people that was there last week.
Digressing.
That was not.
I need you to
say oversight for everything. Across the board.
That pharmacist is the last thing I'll say. No, I mean, at the end of the day, if you go home with none of the information that was shared today, the most important thing to take with you is that we're not simply fighting for the buildings. We all want our repairs done. We all deserve to have our repairs done. We're also fighting for Section 9, the rules and the regulations that govern resident participation. Section 8 is a good program, but unique. Public housing is unique, and those 964 regulations are unique to you all. And regardless of what they tell you, all of those rules and regulations that come under 964 regulations do not cross over into Section 8. You have heard it all through tonight what is the real reason why they are coming after our buildings. Let us remember that the money that they put into Section 8 is the same amount of money that they put into Section 9. They have made a conscious decision on which bucket they want to put that money in. What we have to really understand is that they are diminishing the amount of money that they put into public housing, not because they don't have it, but because we live there. And so if you believe that and you agree with me that that's the reason, then what makes us think that 10 years down the road, they're not going to start cutting Section 8 and we're not going to be here, right? The big difference that we should go home with again is that the difference is when they put you in this Section 8 program, they are also borrowing from the private sector in the form of a mortgage. Under Section 9, they have the ability to borrow money, but they cannot foreclose under the property. Right? So if NYCHA doesn't get the money to do your repairs, you don't get the repairs under Section 9. But if NYCHA and the government doesn't give the money to Section 8, not only will you not get your repairs, but you risk foreclosure to the private sector. So again, as much as we want to save our buildings and get our buildings repaired, we have to think long term and longer down the road to make sure that these units are here not just for us, but generations to come, right? And the only way to do that now is exactly what Sadie was talking about in her comments. We have to hold our elected officials accountable. We are 176,000 families spread across New York City. That's 500,000 residents spread across the city. 1% of the public housing population can determine who will be our mayor. 1% of the public housing population can determine who will be our governor. So not only do we should not get caught up in these forced choices of do we want Section 8 or Section 9. We should be going to our elected officials telling them we need them to fund Section 9 and we need to protect our rights. But it's not about getting rid of public housing. It's about expanding it and using the essence of the 964 regulations to spread them across all types of housing.
And sustain them. I got one last person to speak about improving NYC streets. I want to introduce Shahida Smith, who also works there. Can I blow something there?
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed their family day and Indigenous People Day last week. Today, what I want to speak to you all about very briefly is some changes that are proposed to our community. This has not been widely communicated to Lower East Side. You may have seen a flyer on a lamppost or something like that, and you won't buy it. But the truth of the matter is, in conjunction with the ESCR, how many people here know what the ESCR is? ESCR, who knows? Let me see a high hand for it. For those of you who do not know, it's the construction that is happening, the plan that is happening for the East River Park.
Yes.
Okay? I'm a CAB member for that, a community advisory group, part of the group for that. And I actually attended a meeting here about a month ago. How are you doing this afternoon? I'm well. I actually attended a meeting here with the Department of Transportation and New York City Parks and Recreation about some of the plans that they had for the crossings for the ESCR. So in this meeting, I just came to listen. But if anyone in here knows me, I can't listen without saying, hey, what happened? Who did you speak to? So they got about 700 respondents for this proposal. Okay, and this proposal is basically the crossings to go back to the FDR Drive, right?
Yes.
So the DOT wants to know about the parking, who it's affecting, things of that nature. So as I'm in this meeting, and I specifically sat at the table for the Lancet Street crossing, because I was born and raised in the Baruch Project.
Thank you for coming.
Right? Thank you so much. I was born and raised in the Baruch Project. So that crossing has always been, and if anybody here knows about it, it's always been kind of daunting. Right? Coming back from a cookout at 9 o'clock, you're like, well, somebody gonna cut me or no. Right? So basically their proposal, right, they surveyed 700 people in all of the Lower East Side, from Smith houses all the way to Jacob's houses. And anybody here knows you could get 700 people in one building. So for that amount of people to respond, right, I questioned them, like, when did you ask these questions?
Yes.
Right? When did you table? When did you try to seek this community engagement? They specifically told me that they were contacting the TA president. Of course. Why not? Right? And I had to let them know that, that's just one demographic of the community. Right. The folks who come to TA meetings are not necessarily going to be representative of everybody who has to walk across these streets, who want to go across the bridge to go to the park. So I kind of pushed them like, hey, I need you all to do another round. A real one that really represents everyone. The mothers who have to push their carriages across the street. Right? So one of the proposals were, and you all are going to be able to see this on your own when you take the QR code and you're going to take the survey yourself, right? But one of them that really alarmed me was the DOT, Department of Transportation, wanted to cut off traffic from Delancey Street to Grand Street, the service road of the FDR Drive, and deter traffic to go up next to PS 110.
Yeah.
I am an alumni of PS 110. Yeah. So for me, I am the environmental justice, climate justice advocate for goals at this point in my life, right? I said, so you mean to tell me you're going to put traffic in front of the school? And so what happens to the M14? And so what happens to the M21? And so what happens to the traffic that's going to come down Grand Street that's already cut off because you already deterred traffic? You already stopped people being allowed to turn right onto Clinton Street. And that affected the community. And that affected the elderly home. The elder home that's on Suffolk Street for all the Asian Americans, and now they have to hear the honking, and they have to get the fumes, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of positioned them, to propose to them, how we doing that around, because I don't think that is adequate. I don't think that you all received enough information from our community, right? So my goal, no pun intended, my goal is to get the community to take this survey. Yes. Okay? There's about 15 questions. There are diagrams that are going to represent their plan, their proposal, right? To cut off streets, to do construction on sidewalks, specifically on 6th Street overpass. They no longer want the 6th Street overpass to be where it currently is. They want to put a whole bike lane and pedestrian lane on the north side of 6th Street. That's going to cut off Jacob Reese housing traffic for however long, right? For folks to be able to cross the street for however long, right? So these are the things that we need to get our feedback on, right? And so I'm going to pass an emergency access because my administrative coordinator, Butler, who's here, you know, she definitely gave me that influence, and I didn't even think about it, to be quite honest with you. I didn't think about the emergency access initially, but that's an important part of this as well. So I'm going to pass this out. I'm hoping that you all can take a picture of the QR code or go to the link that's here on this paper so that you can take the survey. And I implore you to share this with your neighbors, specifically the elders, specifically parents who have to cross the streets to go to different schools, right, in the morning, specifically people who have to take the M14 bus, the M21 bus, because this is going to drastically impact people's commute in the mornings and in the evenings, right? Not only that, but you will have to also consider the parking. Where are we going to park if there are no parking spaces because there are extended green spaces that they want to place into our developments, right? So please, I implore you all, so please take this survey. Please spread the word. I've already partnered with Harvey Street Settlement to bring this out to the seniors up on Black houses, right? And also the Job Plus participants and clients so that they can also take it. But we know that when we put out surveys, it's really only but a buck of the people who respond to them. Unfortunately. And these are going to unfortunately be the same people who said they making changes in our community and we don't even know. But now you know. And I need you to help me, help them know what the plans are proposed to be. They will be, I see you, they will be presenting this to the community board in January. This is on the schedule for the community board free transportation committee this month, or the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. So I need you all to please complete this survey, have as much community engagement that represents the people who are here every day who take it in 14. Because you just imagine the world, and LES, I was born and raised in Bruges. You imagine a world where they cut off the traffic from Houston Street to Grand Street.
That's a part of the city of mess, right? Who? Is that a part of the city of mess?
I don't know.
18 policies, you did change 18 policies.
It might have been, but I'm not going to say, I'm not going to confirm or deny, but I am going to confirm that this was the proposal that they spoke to in the meeting in this space right here. So, as much as folks want to be complacent, you know, and I feel like everyone who's in this space for the most part, y'all are leaders. And y'all are here because you want to really see the change, or have a part in the change, or speak to the change, right? That's happening in your community. We gotta start harassing people. And we're gonna have to start being like, hey, did you do this? Because if we don't, what's gonna happen is we're gonna continue to have people who are complacent, who are gonna continue to allow the world around them, the community around them to change without their input. We have to be those nagging people. We have to go to our churches like, did you know this is happening? We have to do that. We have to go to these schools, to these PCAs. We have to do that. There's no, at this point, and I don't know, y'all are here with the illustrious panel, thank you very much. We have to, because of change, we cannot allow change to continue to happen to us. We have to be a part of that change. So when you have organizations like those, like when you have a assembly member of Epstein, we have to come out. And we have to tell people to come out. Because if we don't, the world is going to continue to change around us. They're going to continue to take schools away from us. They're going to continue to take shopping areas away from us. They're going to continue. Listen, they sent me a bill the other day talking about I got to pay $1,800 for rent. And I'm like, where? I'm going to get me a house in Jersey. Then forget that. And that's what a lot of people do. Right? But at the same time, we're not fighting for these changes. Because we all know they just invested in NYCHA how long ago? 40 years, they have put their money in us, how long ago? So if we're not going to be those folks who are using our voices, then you might as well just be mute. And I'm going to say
Christina would like to make one final comment, and then I'm going to have closing remarks. Okay, sure.
Sorry.
And you are?
Kendall Hernandez. I work in the state assembly, but I'm a born and raised resident of the Lower East Side,
Okay.
as well. And the community board 3 is a place that makes a lot of these decisions. They vote on the decisions for our community. We are not present on the changes, and we are not using our voices, and we are not there. Our communities, just like you said, we have to step up. We need to join the community board, and we need to be present at the meetings. Even if you're not there, be present at the meetings. The schedule's on every month, so you can see what projects are coming and participate and voice your opinion. Because if not, people who don't look like us are making the choices for us. And I say that with my hat on. I say that as a resident of the Lower East Side. So,
Thank you, Christina. And closing remarks. And if you want to speak with the legal representation that is in the back, please take a minute to say hello, pick up a card. You never know when you might need some help. That is to have you and not have you.
I just wanted to say,
One voice, please. Hello. We're not finished yet.
One mic.
I can try to
One mic,
voice. I just wanted to second that, getting involved with the community board, because the city council person will give you some turkeys and not let you know what's happening when it comes to the rezoning. That's for me. So if we are going to get serious about knowing what's happening in our neighborhood, community boards are it. And I think that we need to harness their power to support NYCHA development. But moreover, we need to learn about the rezoning happening in most of our neighborhoods and leverage that and use that to get funding from the city. That's what has happened in previous Whitehall Gardens and Gowanus, where they were having a rezoning and they were able to negotiate millions of dollars for their development and still stay under Section 9. So it is possible for Section 9 housing to be reinvested. It is possible for us to find other funding sources to remain Section 9 and get the repairs that we deserve, that we've been deserving for years. So it's possible.
So these surveys, so what they need is done by December 15th. So if anybody's interested in me coming to speak with their folks, I am open to do that. Unfortunately, they said they do not have the bandwidth to do the presentation on their own, but if you go on the Department of Transportation website, it is there. I will share the information with everyone here who made sure that they signed in today. But I have to reiterate what Ms. Christina said. There are 21 housing developments in LES. 21. There is no reason why we don't have 21 Senate and Associate Presidents representing us. 21. We are highly, highly blessed.
Amen.
And if we do not use our voices, it's not going to happen. And I haven't been in the trenches for a minute, and I have to be honest with you. Right? Because I was working with the
She jumped right back in.
You know what I'm saying? I was working with the Department of Community Development. But as you walk down the street and you see what's happening here, we need to really make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable. Because we can't complain about something if we're not doing nothing. Right.
Okay, so I'd like to once again introduce, what's your name again? Oh, Cesar Reyes. And he is the Director of Organizing with goals. He's gonna do our closing remarks, and then, thank you for coming.
So, once again, well, first and foremost, I want to, express tremendous gratitude to the families for taking the time and opportunity in their schedules to be here with us, have this conversation, right? Angela, thank you, right, for working with everybody, putting together. Right, the team, the family over at Goals, but most importantly, right?
My Goals team, yes!
Most importantly, what I would say last and not least, the residents, right? Without you guys running this work as possible, right? Yeah, of course, I'll show love to our elected officials, why not? I show you guys love. I mean, you guys also provide support. But what I would say is, ultimately, our residents, the community members, you guys are the voice, right? You guys are the driving force. You guys are the fuel. You guys are the reason why we do this work, right? And I think it's important that we take tonight, right? We take the fuel that we're building off from tonight to continue this process. Right, we're in the process of organizing what we're calling the East Side Corridor. Good. We work right here in the LES. Our responsibility and what we focus on are the residents here in the LES. But guess what? Now we got folks up in East Harlem reaching out to us. And they're saying, yo, we're dealing with the same thing. So it's time for us to really think and strategize and think about ways for us to collaborate and bring everyone together because we're all fighting the same fight. There we go. So, I want you guys to really take into consideration what has happened tonight, what has transpired, and let us build on that, right? Let us build on that. And I want to leave you guys, I don't want to be on the mic for too long, but I want to leave you guys with something that I live by. And I think it's very important, and I want to share it with you all because I think that if you also apply it in some shape, way, or form, right, in your personal lives, it is something that is going to help the process. It's something that's going to help the movement, right? There's an old saying that says that with great knowledge comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man?
Right? You guys tonight have shared and spent the last 2 hours of your lives learning and hearing and engaging with one another, right? There is a beautiful thing that happens when a congregation comes together. I don't want to get too churchy now. But now that you guys have this knowledge, you guys also have this responsibility. In the same way that we've taken the time and opportunity to reach out to you, it is now your responsibility to reach out to your neighbor and tell them, let's get this shit done.
Anyone that signed the sign-up sheet for Goals, would you like me to, I want to ask you